Guys, welcome back here to today's edition of Intuitive Angling, and really appreciate you guys swinging by the channel to check out today's episode. And guys, today we are going to be talking about the very boneheaded announcement that the Missouri Department of Conservation announced, I saw it today, that they are going to change the length limit on spotted bass on Table Rock Lake from 15 inches to 12 inches, starting this April. It's been 15 inches since the mid-1970s. And in their infinite wisdom, not that we're going to talk about in today's video, they decided to drop it down to 12 inches. So we're going to discuss that in today's episode, and curious to get your guys' reaction to this as well here. But also, guys, before we get started, quick reminder that Cumberland Pro Lures has got a limited run on my Blaukat Throwback jig in the black with blue tinsel here. Guys, this is a super labor-intensive jig to tie. That's why we only offer this through the Cumberland Pro Lures website about once every 3 or 4 months. This color is not in Tackle Warehouse, so if you're interested in picking up some on this limited run, I'll have the Cumberland Pro Lures link to my jig in the description of this video if you guys would like to pick up a few. And also, guys, speaking of Tackle Warehouse, I've been talking about it. They got a big spring fishing sale going on. Now is a great time to get stocked up, guys. I'll have my Tackle Warehouse link in the description of this video. If you guys would like to use my link and bookmark it for your tackle purchases, that's a really good way to support the channel if you like what I'm doing here. And thank you very much from me and my family to everybody that's been doing that. You guys, tell me that you're using my links. We really appreciate that. Okay, guys, I don't know if you've heard about this, but like they finally announced that they're going to do it. The Missouri Department of Conservation reduced the size limit on spotted bass from 15 to 12 inches. Now, they took an angler survey last year on this, and guys, everybody that I know, all the old school guys that have fished Table Rock forever like I have, were all in opposition to this for a lot of the same reasons I'm going to talk about. And I want to talk about how this is a very, it's a bad move on their part to do this. And I want to explain my reasoning on this. First of all, there is nobody at the Department of Conservation in the state of Missouri, and there's very few people that are watching this video, if any, that have spent more days fishing Table Rock or as long as I have. I've been fishing Table Rock since 1967. I have spent thousands of days on Table Rock Lake. I fished it heavily since the late 1970s tournament fishing. I've spent probably more than anybody that's watching this video, and I've got a lot of buddies that have done the same thing. And so coming from this standpoint, I'm not just criticizing the Department of Conservation from somebody that doesn't know what the hell they're talking about. I've seen the lake, and I've seen the evolution of all the species on the lake, and I've seen how things have changed over the years. And this is a stupid move on their part to do that. Now, it's amazing to me that they're wasting their time trying to do surveys to reduce the size limit of spotted bass on Table Rock, but they're ignoring and sticking their head in the sand over the stupid cheater box, which has devastated Table Rock Lake. Here's the thing that I'll tell you something about Table Rock Lake, guys. Again, I fished it extensively for 50 years now, and there has been just an undeniable, precipitous decline in the quality of fishing at Table Rock Lake, specifically over the past 5, going on 10 years now, but specifically over the past 5 years. An unbelievable degradation in the quality of the fishing and the numbers of fish that you catch there. But the problem that you have with this is there's this illusion that there's not any problems with it, because forward-facing sonar has become such a unbelievable dominant technique on the lake that all these guys are catching these offshore fish that have had sanctuaries for years. But I can tell you from somebody that has spent a lifetime fishing Table Rock 30 foot and less. I fish deeper than that too, but I've spent most of my time fishing Table Rock Lake, at less than 30 foot of water. The bass do not live. There are not the populations of bass by not even close that there used to be at Table Rock Lake, specifically over the past 5 to 10 years. I talked to all my buddies about this that fish the lake a lot, and a lot of the guys even use live scope that I'm talking about. They all say the same thing. What has happened to the lake? Where's the fish at in the lake? And this is what I'm trying to explain here to the Missouri Department of Conservation that they don't understand. These dudes that work for the Missouri Department of Conservation, they may have the book smarts and they may have all the, whatever, metrics that they use to figure out the health of the lake, but they don't have time on the water. They don't have decades and decades and thousands of days on the water in a real life situation. So here, I'm going to give you guys some different scenarios with this. The reason, they say that the reason they're doing this, there's been a decline in the number of keeper spotted bass on Table Rock Lake that are over 15 inches. We're not seeing the numbers of 15 inches on Table Rock Lake. You know why you're not seeing the numbers of 15-inch bass, spotted bass on Table Rock Lake specifically over the past 5 or 10 years? Because they're getting the sides knocked off them by people keeping them, eating them. Here's what's happening that the Conservation Department doesn't understand. Number one is there's a tremendous loss of delayed mortality. The spotted bass population of the keeper bass have suffered a huge amount of delayed mortality from barotrauma issues from live scope and forward-facing sonar. If you go down to Table Rock Lake any time of the year except when every single bass is on the bed, you look in there and you'll see these big spotted bass floating upside down. They've been caught out of 50, 60 foot of water. Even the ones that survive the fizzing, which damages their bladders and everything, they die later, most of them, from internal organ damage and eye damage from the barotrauma issues from getting pulled out of this deeper water. So you're losing a tremendous amount of the 15-inch and bigger class of spotted bass over the past 5 or 10 years from tournament competition. Then you add on top of that the meat hunters. And guys, you can go down to about any boat ramp at Table Rock Lake and you can see bass getting filleted out there. And what happens is there's a ton of people there's two different groups of people on this that are keeping these. You got a lot of night anglers that fish for bass on Table Rock Lake, and when they catch keeper spotted bass, they go in the frying pan. Lots of them get killed doing that. And then on top of that, you've got so many different anglers out there that are getting better and better with this live scope technology. So not only are the tournament 15-inch spotted bass dying from delayed mortality from tournaments, the recreational anglers that are getting better using the forward-facing minnow to catch these deep spotted bass, those bass are going into the frying pan on top of that. So this is the reality of the situation, that they're trying to make it seem like all these small spotted bass are taking over the lake and that you got to get these 11 to 14-inch spotted bass out of the lake. The reason there's so many 11 and 14-inch spotted bass is because all the 15 inches are gone. They've either been eaten or kept from tournaments. That is the reality of the situation. Now, here's the thing about it. The Department of Conservation, I want to know how they came to this determination, because they have a lot of different sampling methods. They have electroshocking, that they use. They use some gill nets. They, do some electroshocking at night, and they take angler surveys and samples. Here's the thing about it, guys. You cannot base your data upon taking an angler survey. There's nothing to say that those people aren't lying or they're trying to hide something. That is not a scientific method to pull up to a boat ramp. And I've seen them out there. I've seen the Conservation Department. They got their little clipboard out there. They came up to me. It's like, how many bass did you catch today, Mr. Blaukat? How many were over, under, this type of stuff? That is not, you cannot believe what everyone tells you on that. So there's no way that they can use that and justify that as a proper metric to measure the bass populations in the lake. So here's what they need to focus on. Instead of trying to decimate the spotted bass population, which this is going to do, what's going to happen, guys, when they make this reduction down to 12 inches on spotted bass, everybody and his brother out there is going to go catch a bunch of 12-inch spotted bass and put them in the frying pan. It's going to decimate the brood stock, because all the other 15 inches are gone from the tournament anglers out there. The population of spotted bass is going to decline. And this, guys, I'll tell you, here's a couple of different things. And I'm all over the place on this, but here's a couple of different things. They instituted this 15-inch limit in 1976, okay? All of us who fish Table Rock knows that from the period of about 1980 to about 1995, Table Rock was full of big spotted bass, big ones, 3 and 4 pounders. It was nothing to catch a limit of 15, 16 pound spotted bass on there. So they can't use this they use this explanation that these, you know, all these spotted bass on there, these, you know, there's too many. I mean, they're using all the explanation out there that the 15-inch bass do not exist in the lake because there's too many small ones. There was tons of small ones back then. Back when I was catching 15, 16, 17 pounds of limits of spotted bass in the 80s and 90s, there was tons of small spotted bass in the lake too, and they were all fat. So that, I do not go for that. I do not believe that that is true, you know, from that standpoint that they try to make that argument with it. And here's another thing, and I'm going to bash on the conservation department a little bit here. I had I owned a 40-acre lake for years, guys, up north of Joplin, Missouri. And this particular lake I had is, you know, I wanted to manage it how I wanted to manage it. So once I got the lake and once I bought the property up there, I had the conservation department, the Missouri Department of Conservation came up there and they did a shocking survey and they wrote me this big recommendation for my 40-acre lake. They suggested that I harvest 100 bass per acre per year, 4,000 bass a year out of my lake. And they told me this, I go, you guys have got to be out of your mind. You think I should take 4,000 bass a year out of my 40-acre lake here to make it healthy? I said, there's no way. So I did it my way. And what I did, you know what I did, is I increased the habitat. I made sure I had plenty of habitat in the lake. And also I increased my forage base with perch, shiners, shad, that type of stuff. As a result, not keeping anything out of the lake, it was a freaking hog factory. Ask anyone that fished my lake up there, it was full of big ones. And I never took any fish out of it, out of a 40-acre lake, because I kept my forage base up and I kept my habitat up. So this crap that they said I should take 4,000 bass a year out of my lake is freaking insanity. Now, here's another thing about it. One of the things I've read on the release on there is they said that basically, you know, you gotta take these small spotted bass out of Table Rock Lake or they're gonna take over and overpopulate the lake. That is the biggest bunch of crap in the world. Table Rock Lake is a 45,000 acre lake. It's not some little 1 acre farm pond where these bass are gonna, you know, overproduce. 45,000 acre lake. There is no way that man should have to interfere whatsoever in the cycle of that lake. I can promise you guys, if you shut Table Rock down for 10 years and didn't allow a cast on the lake, it would be full of big smallmouth, big spotted bass, and big largemouth because the natural predation of the lake is going to take care of itself. All the otters, all the loons, all the herring, all the other predatory fish that are in the lake, that cycle will balance out. It doesn't need man to impose a 12-inch limit on spotted bass to take care of it. So anyway, guys, I am in complete disagreement with this. And this is, like I said, I'm coming from somebody that has fished the lake for freaking 55 years, including my buddies that agree with me on this, that fish the lake all the time. The fact that, you know, my example that I used with my 40-acre lake about how they were just full of crap, you know, they said, oh, Randy, if you don't take all these fish out of your lake, they're all going to get stunted and your lake's going to be terrible. That was a freaking lie. My lake was full of big fish after I put all the habitat and all the forage base in it. And if they want to do something, there's three things that they could do. If the Missouri Department of Conservation wanted to do the right thing and they were in touch with reality, number one, they would ban the cheater box. They'd get that off the Table Rock Lake. That's going to save so much of the fish population. Number two, they would work on habitat restoration programs. We've lost a tremendous amount of habitat out of Table Rock Lake in terms of standing and submergent timber, cedar trees, and that type of stuff. They need to have a habitat restoration program on the lake, and they need to institute some type of a forage-based stocking program on the lake. You have those three elements on a lake like Table Rock Lake, you don't need to take fish out of the lake. There's more fish getting there's more fish getting taken out of Table Rock Lake and dying from tournaments than the Missouri Department of Conservation has any idea of. For the most part, I have talked to these guys, and I'm not saying they're clueless whatsoever. And if you work for the Missouri Department of Conservation, you know, I'm not trying to insult you here, but what I am saying is a lot of those guys, the people that work for them, are detached from the reality of what fishing really is on Table Rock Lake. I can take them out and show you. I can show you freaking 50 banks on Table Rock Lake that were loaded with largemouth spotted bass and smallmouth lake for 50 years, and the last 5 years, they've just mysteriously disappeared. And I talk to guys all the time about this, and you can't tell me that after decades and decades and decades of large populations of bass on Table Rock Lake utilizing the same structures on seasonal patterns, and then all of a sudden, for just no reason, out of the last 5 years, those fish are gone. That is, you're in denial of reality if you think that that's just a pattern that the fish do, some type of a cycle that they go through, because it's not. Those bass are not in Table Rock like they used to be. Not only are the populations of fish not in Table Rock, but the big fish are not in Table Rock out there. And it's a combination of guys knocking their sides off, flaying them out, and too many tournaments with a delayed mortality. That's what it is. This is not going to help the lake at all. Taking those spotted bass down to 12-inch limit, all it's going to do, you're still going to have all your 15-inchers killed from tournaments, and it's just going to kill more spotted bass for all these guys that are going to be flaying 12-inchers out now. So anyway, guys, let me know what you think about it. Appreciate it. We'll talk later.